All right, welcome everybody to CNET's live coverage of SpaceX and NASA's Demo-2 launch. It is SpaceX's first crewed launch ever into space, and it is a very big day. We're very excited. It's also the first time that we've seen a US crewed launch from American soil since the shuttle era ended in 2011. So we've got a big day for SpaceX. We've got a big day for NASA's two astronauts, Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken. This is all happening in the middle of a pandemic. We're all recording from home. And down in Florida, where the launch is happening at the Kennedy Space Center, we are praying for good weather. Still touch and go, but keeping our fingers crossed because this launch is weather dependent. But if everything goes well, then we should see a blast off at 4:33 p.m. and 35 seconds to be exact from the historic Launch Pad 39A in Florida. And of course, when we see that happen, we'll have a massive blast off, and I'm very excited to see it all. This is my first launch in America, and I've got a wonderful panel to share it with. So we have CNET's resident space reporter, Mack, with us. Give us a wave, Eric. And we also have our producer extraordinaire, Stephen Beacham, who will be on the tweet, reading your tweets today and joining in the convo. Guys. And we also have our man behind the wires, Bryan Vangelder, who's running the whole show. He's keeping things going smoothly and switching for us. So thanks so much for joining us, guys. Now, be sure to tune in and tweet along. We're at CNET Live, hashtag CNET Live, and you can also join in on YouTube in the comments. So, Eric, I want to start with you. This is a huge day. I'm very excited for space launch. Why is this day so significant?
I mean, it's significant for many reasons, which I think we'll get into. I feel like perhaps the most immediate reason that it's significant is that we really need this right now. I mean, society is shut down on an unprecedented scale. These are probably the weirdest times, the most unusual times any of us have seen in a couple of generations, maybe since World War II. So to be able to break new ground and try something that actually moves humanity and especially America forward after what had been a few decades of inertia in human spaceflight, and doing it during a time when we're all just sort of in this weird social hibernation. I mean, this is the best day of 2020 so far.
That's a really positive, good way to look at it. I like it. Stephen, tell me, you've got young kids yourself. This would be their first space launch that they're watching. This is exciting. Are you feeling personally really excited?
I'm very excited for the space launch. My kids are very excited. They're going to come back and watch. Actually, all the other teachers did a whole lesson plan about the space launch today, which is really cool this morning over Zoom. But this is a big day because this is the launch of the commercial space age for NASA and SpaceX. So we're moving it into a totally different age of space travel. And it's really exciting.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, it's weird for me. I've been to Kennedy. I was there for the Launch Abort 2 test last year. So that made it really real for me. But being from Australia, we don't really get the launches. So it's really a different atmosphere here, and it's super exciting. Obviously, this is a big day for Elon Musk. Everyone knows him as the figurehead of SpaceX. But we've only until now seen rocket tests and cargo missions into space. This is the first time we're actually seeing crew takeoff. So they'll take off atop the Falcon 9 rocket in the Crew Dragon space capsule. Now, we heard from Elon Musk earlier today. He was on CBS this morning talking about his nerves, talking about his anticipation for this big launch. It's obviously huge for him. Let's roll that clip, BVG, because I really loved hearing from him on launch day.
Is there one thing that keeps you up at night about this launch?
Not one thing.
No.
There's a lot of things.
Because a million things have to go right.
Yes. Thousands of things that can go wrong, and only one thing that can go right. Anything anyone can think of to improve the probability of success and make sure Bob and Doug are safely taken to the space station, that is the absolute priority. In fact, I've told the SpaceX team it is not simply the top priority, it is the only priority.
How does that responsibility weigh on you?
It weighs very heavily. It's really all I can think about right now. I really have to mentally block it, because otherwise it would be emotionally impossible to deal with.
It's that significant.
Yes. I was asking them just a few hours ago, it's like, you guys feel good about this? Is there anything you want us to do? And man, they're cool as a cucumber. I mean, they're just like, nerves of steel.
It's astonishing. I mean, they're ready to go. I sent them a text yesterday, and I said, if there's anything you want me to do to stop this,
Exactly, totally.
I'll stop it in a heartbeat.
Yes.
And both of them said, we're go for launch, both of them.
So the astronauts are cooler than you two.
Right?
I think so.
Probably.
I really love seeing that. I think of Elon as being this guy who's totally in control and running, you know, multiple companies at multiple times. And I felt like we kind of saw a human side from him today. I mean, this is the first time that we're really seeing private companies together with NASA. This is part of NASA's Commercial Crew program, which is about bringing private companies on board to make space travel cheaper, more efficient, and to kind of enable this new era where we do more in space. Now, Eric, give us a bit of a background on the Commercial Crew program, what SpaceX's involvement in is, and I guess why this is so historic in terms of taking space travel private.
Well, I mean, the drive to make NASA, the way NASA does space more private, is actually, it dates back a couple of decades and a few administrations. And the basic idea is, instead of NASA going out and hiring a contractor to build a rocket for them, they just say, hey, we want a rocket and we'll buy it from whoever has the best one to offer. And for a commercial crew, the Commercial Crew program, which is the first program to do this with Crew, obviously, they signed up Boeing and SpaceX. And so this is the first actual launch. And technically, this is still part of the testing process. It's Demo-2 for Demonstration 2, meaning the first demonstration with Crew aboard. And then Boeing would be up next. They've had a couple of difficulties. Their first uncrewed test didn't make it to the space station, so they're lagging behind a little bit. But it's following up on the commercial cargo program, which SpaceX was also involved in with their regular Cargo Dragon. So this has been going on for years, but it's by far the most significant part of the program so far. Significant day, that is.
For sure. And so, Stephen, I'm interested. The last time we saw Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken fly was during the shuttle era. They've both got a couple of shuttle missions under their belt, but this is a totally new mission for them. What do you see as the main parallels between this first launch on US soil since 2011 and what we saw in the late 90s, early noughties of that kind of shuttle era of space travel?
So the where it's launching from is the Launch Complex 39A, which is significant in itself because it's the same launch pad that they launched the Apollo 11 missions to the moon back in the 60s. So there's a lot of parallels in that aspect of it, in that, you know, they're using the same site as to launch a new era of space travel, which is pretty interesting. This is part of a $2.6 billion contract that NASA signed with SpaceX in 2014. So going back to the pressure that Elon Musk is feeling right now, it's not just lives on the line, but it's a lot of money. There's a lot of buttons being pressed. There's a lot of prep, I think this was 9 to 6 years of preparation for this. So there's a lot on the line. It's pretty incredible what's going on. And it's like me and BBG were like trying to figure out this vMix thing yesterday so that we could do this show properly. And this was like our NASA SpaceX launch, you know. So, like we thought we had some buttons to press, but what they're dealing with is incredible out there. Like, there's just so much on the line right now. So, I'm very excited to see how it goes.
For sure, for sure. Well, I actually want to get to the button pressing a bit later when we talk about the actual spacecraft that they're in. But let's take a look at the two astronauts. We were watching a whole bunch of footage this morning, and one of the NASA interviewers asked Elon Musk what was the last thing that he said what was the important thing that he said to his two astronauts and to their families. And he said to the families, we're going to find a way to make sure that your dads come back safe. So the whole time we've really seen this personalization around Bob and Doug. They took Teslas to the launch pad and it said ISS bound. I actually thought on the license plate ISS B&D stood for ISS Bob and Doug. I was wrong. But we've got two really personable astronauts, and we saw a really wonderful profile on them on CBS as well. So BBG, I wonder if you could play that for us, because there's some particularly good retro photos in that one.
We are counting down to next week's historic SpaceX launch. In coverage, we're calling Launch America. This will be the first liftoff of American astronauts from U.S. soil since 2011. Exactly 1 week from today, Elon Musk's SpaceX will take 2 NASA astronauts to the International Space Station. This marks the dawn of a new era in space travel, the commercial age. Our Mark Strassman introduces us to the astronauts who will be on this mission.
Doug Reilly.
Their introduction deserved to be splashy.
Bob Behnken.
Bob Behnken and Doug Reilly are SpaceX's inaugural crew. They'll launch on the company's reusable rocket, the Falcon 9, and command the maiden voyage of its new spacecraft, the Crew Dragon, all the way to the space station. Both men flew on space shuttles. Both have traveled twice before to the space station. Reilly piloted Atlantis there in 2011.
Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Final flight of the shuttle program.
And you didn't know whether you'd fly again or for whom?
I wasn't sure I wanted to fly again, to be quite honest with you.
You're a NASA astronaut about to step into a SpaceX capsule.
It's completely different than what you would have ever imagined yourself doing.
Reilly, now 53, grew up in upstate New York. He was an athletic kid who went to Tulane. Colonel Reilly is also a retired Marine and a flight test pilot. Behnken is 49, born and raised near St. Louis. He has a Ph.D. in mechanical engineering from Caltech. In the Air Force, Colonel Behnken was a flight test engineer. Both joined NASA in 2000. They've been friends for 2 decades.
I got to believe that's a help. It absolutely is a help. I think we're way past the polite stage in our relationship. I'm not looking for romance from Doug. I'm not looking for surprises in our relationship. He's predictable in a way that over 20 years I've built a model for him, and I can tell you what he's going to say as we go forward, and he can tell you what I'm going to do based on just hearing the tone of my voice or seeing the look on my face, sort of a thing.
You know, one characteristic I think we have in spades is we don't quit. We don't give up, and we like a big challenge, and by gosh, we certainly got one.
They both met their wives in the NASA astronaut class of 2000. Behnken married Megan MacArthur. Reilly married Karen Nyberg.
They're great guys, period. Obviously, we think so. Yeah, we hit the jackpot.
In 2009, MacArthur's robotic skills helped prolong the life of the Hubble Space Telescope. She and Behnken have a 6-year-old son, Theodore.
We just try to talk to him as normally as possible about, this is daddy's job, this is mommy's job, dad's going to go and launch on a rocket and go to space station, so that it's just kind of a normal thing for him to absorb.
Nyberg, Reilly's wife, has spent 180 days in space, including 2 trips to the space station.
Did you and your wife leave little notes for each other?
We should have, yeah, we should have. So apparently her hair is still up there. I get reports all the time. She's got long blonde hair, and they are still finding it in the filters up there.
So my wife also does what I do for a living. It's much, much harder for me to BS her about certain aspects of the gig, all right? We have the same problem. Yeah. What is that like to be married to other astronauts and launching into this new era of space exploration?
The biggest thing is we know how they're going to feel on launch day, and it is way harder on them to watch somebody that you care for get on a rocket and go fly than it is for the 2 guys on the rocket. It's a tough, tough job to be the one watching.
On launch day, Reilly's son Jack will be watching. He drew this picture of his father's spaceship.
He hasn't talked about being scared or nervous. He's talked about how proud he is of his dad. I don't want to talk about being scared or nervous either and have him pick up on that.
They'd all rather focus on potential rewards for America as a spacefaring country and as astronaut dads.
I think the thing I'm most looking forward to is being able to share this experience with my son. This will be something completely new for him, but to talk to him from space and to talk to him about the mission after I come back, I'm just excited for him to be able to see it with his own eyes and experience it.
Behnken and Reilly get here to Kennedy Space Center this afternoon. They've both been in quarantine since last Wednesday, and both 10-year-old Jack and 6-year-old Theodore will also be here to watch their dads launch in person. And that should give them a new appreciation for what dad and mom do for a living. Anthony,
Yeah, wow, Mark, what a great story. What a great story the two of them have together, the four of them, really, when you include the wives and the whole families. We wish them all the best. Thank you, Mark. Great story. We'll continue to count down to the SpaceX launch on Wednesday, May 27th, right here on CBS This Morning. Next week, we'll talk to NASA astronaut Christopher Cassidy, who is on the International Space Station waiting to greet the SpaceX crew when they arrive.
All right, that was a great profile. We are getting a bit of word that we might have an update on weather. So let's go to NASA now and see if we've got any more information from Florida. All right, this is a shot of Doug Hurley and Bob.
If we could move,
it was just confirmed.
Past the T0, weather conditions may improve, but Mike was not able to do that. We have an instantaneous window today. So at 17 minutes, we want to make that call because shortly after that, we will begin loading liquid oxygen onto the second stage. So if we're not going to have the opportunity to launch, if the clock's going to run out, stand by.
Continue to violate a couple different weather rules that we now do not expect to clear in time to allow for a launch today. We go ahead and end today's launch attempt. Launch control would end the launch auto sequence and proceed into the launch abort auto sequence, please. Launch abort has started.
All right, that was the word there that I think we are not go for today because of that beautiful Florida weather. The storm cells off the coast of Kennedy there. It's been a pretty wild ride, 18 minutes a live show leading to no launch today. What's going to happen now is they had an instantaneous launch window. So, Eric, I want you to explain that for me and why that means we're going to go to a Saturday backup.
An instantaneous launch window just means that the launch has to happen at that moment. You can't delay it 10 minutes or things will be off and they won't be able to make the rendezvous with the International Space Station. And so the next time that everything will line up and the next instantaneous launch window is going to be on Saturday. So we're scrubbed until Saturday. And hopefully the weather will be better. At the last forecast, it was a 70% chance of a go for Saturday versus today was just a 50-50 chance. So should be better odds over the weekend.
That's right, yeah. So, I mean, the actual act of getting into space, it only takes them about 9 minutes to get into orbit. And then from there, they have about an 18-hour flight to line up slowly and make sure that they're ready to get towards the space station because they're going at, around the Earth at 17,500 miles per hour. So you don't want to crash into the ISS. So that instantaneous window is obviously very important. So that means coming back on Saturday, I think that the launch time that we tentatively have is 3:22 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. And then if that doesn't work, that there's a backup date on Sunday that could be available. So at this stage, we're looking at a Saturday launch. Unfortunate, we've obviously still got the guys there. You can see in the picture that we've got them in the bottom of the screen, just hanging out. They've been in there for a couple of hours now. I can't imagine what it's like to go through the whole process of saying goodbye to the family, doing the whole rigmarole of going up to the launch pad and then getting in there locked in and then having to just come back to Earth again. I imagine the nerves would be very difficult, but that obviously
as a theater nerd once, and there's nothing wrong with an extra dress rehearsal. You can never get enough practice.
Absolutely.
Safety first.
Safety
we
first.
definitely want safety first. We definitely want everything to go as planned. So it's a good call.
Yeah, good call. And of course, they're taking no risks, this being the first crewed launch for SpaceX. So that means that I guess we're pretty much wrapped up here today. What it does mean, however, is that we'll be doing this again. Sorry, guys, you don't have a weekend anymore. You're going to have to join me on Saturday. Hopefully it'll be a little quieter outside my apartment. There won't be as much construction going on. That does mean that if we have a launch at around 3:30, you can join us from about 3 o'clock here on Saturday. We'll make sure we update all that info on our social feeds, but you can come back to this channel where we'll have all the info. We'll also have information on docking, so that's going to be on the next day. So if you're just tuning in with us, what we've seen is that the Crew Dragon launch, the Demo-2 launch, is not going ahead. The weather in Florida was too inclement for them to actually launch. They were looking at weather not only over the Kennedy Space Center, but they're looking at the surrounding weather, because obviously once you get a rocket up in the sky, it's moving very quickly, goes through a lot of weather cells. So that's been a cancellation on today. They're aborting, and Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken will come out of the Crew Dragon and get ready to do it all again on Saturday. It means they'll launch from the Kennedy Space Center at 3:22 Eastern Time on Saturday. They'll launch, if all goes to plan, fingers crossed once again that the weather is going to be better, and we hear it will be, that they will launch into space, and then they will dock with the International Space Station on Sunday morning. Great. So Saturday afternoon, guys, and Sunday morning. Hope you didn't have any plans. Hope you weren't planning to go to Disneyland this weekend, but you'll be able to join it all here. So thanks for joining us, guys. Apologies we didn't get to see the real fun today, but I'm really glad that we're able to. I mean, it was a test run for us, right? Doing this whole Zoom situation from home.
It worked. Everything worked as planned on our end.
That's the most important thing, I think. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Remember to stick to CNET, stick to CNET's YouTube channel on the weekend for everything you'll be able to see. We've got interviews with astronauts. We've got all the profiles and information you need. We're going to take a closer look at what's actually in the Crew Dragon space capsule and why it is so different to all the knobs and hand joysticks and wires that we saw in the shuttle era. So we'll have all that info for you on launch day on Saturday. And once again, stay tuned to our social channels to see if there are any updates. We'll have more information for you there. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. It was a quick one, but it was fun. All right, see you later.